The wind howled across the wide Montana plains, rattling the loose boards of the old ranch house like ghosts whispering through forgotten cracks. Inside, Samuel Hayes sat slumped at the kitchen table, his calloused hands trembling as he cradled the tiny bundle against his chest. His baby girl's cries filled the room, sharp and unrelenting, piercing deeper into his chest than any cattle horn or barbed wire ever could. He rocked, he shushed, he whispered promises that he wasn't sure he could keep. Just a week ago, his wife, Clara, had been the one with the gentle hands, the warm voice, the motherly touch that soothed the baby in seconds. But Clara was gone now. One moment fevered and weak, the next breath stolen by the harsh hand of illness, leaving Samuel stranded in a storm of grief he could neither ride out nor fight against. The baby's cries grew louder. Samuel's eyes burned. He searched the cupboards, empty of milk. He had tried cow's milk, watered down, but the baby had spat it out and wailed harder. He had tried honey on a rag, just as his mother once told him, but it wasn't enough. Samuel's rough heart cracked wider each minute his daughter went hungry. The ranch outside needed him, the cattle needed feeding, the fences needed fixing. But the man who had once been the backbone of this land was now bent under a weight far greater than any herd. He whispered again to the infant, "Hush now, little Rose. Papa's here. Papa won't let you go hungry." But even as he spoke, his own voice broke with the helplessness of a man who had faced drought, storm, and loss, but never this. Never the fragile life of a child depending on him alone. And then came the knock. A soft, hesitant rap against the door. Samuel rose slowly, the baby still clutched against his chest. He opened the door to find a woman standing there, dust-covered boots, a worn shawl pulled tightly against the evening chill. Her eyes were kind, though shaded with secrets of their own. "I heard the crying," she said softly. "I was passing through." Samuel, torn between suspicion and desperate hope, stepped aside. Her gaze fell on the child, cheeks red with hunger, tiny fists clenched. A mother herself once, though Samuel did not yet know her story, she knew that cry. Without asking permission, but with a gentle strength that brooked no argument, she stepped inside. "Your baby needs feeding," she said simply. Samuel swallowed, words stuck in his throat. Pride, grief, and gratitude all collided in that moment. She sat, cradled the child with practiced hands, and for the first time in days, little Rose quieted. The cabin, which had been filled with anguish, was now filled with silence, soft, holy silence. Samuel turned away, tears blurring his vision. He had thought himself broken beyond repair. Yet here was this stranger, bringing with her something more powerful than comfort, a chance at hope. The days that followed would test both of them, Samuel's pride, the woman's past, the hungry earth itself, but in that moment, by the fire's glow, it was clear that fate had not abandoned the Hayes Ranch. It had only taken a different road to get there. Morning came slowly over the Montana plains. The first rays of light stretched across the horizon, spilling gold across the frosted grass, touching the wooden fences, and sliding through the cracks of Samuel's old ranch house. For the first time in weeks, Samuel woke not to the desperate cries of his baby girl, but to the soft rhythm of her breathing, curled safely in her blanket by the fire. He sat upright, blinking against the sunlight that seemed too bright for the heavy ache still inside him. And then he saw Evelyn. She had not slept much, it seemed. She was already at the hearth, coaxing a flame from dying embers, moving with quiet purpose. There was something about her presence in that kitchen, an ease, a calm, that Samuel hadn't realized he'd been starving for. In that moment, he didn't just see a stranger. He saw a woman who had carried her own storms, yet still stood, steady and unbroken. "Morning," she said softly, glancing at him. He nodded, voice still rough with sleep. "Morning." He rubbed his hands over his face and looked down at Rose, who stirred but didn't cry. A deep breath left his chest, relief, gratitude, maybe even hope. The hours passed gently. Evelyn fed Rose again, humming a tune Samuel didn't know. Samuel tended to the firewood and poured water from the well. For the first time since Clara's passing, the house felt alive, not with grief, but with something lighter, something fragile yet undeniable. Later, as the cattle lowed in the distance, Samuel stood on the porch, staring out at the wide, endless land. Evelyn joined him, her shawl wrapped tightly against the cold. She followed his gaze over the fields. "You've got a good ranch here," she said quietly. Samuel's lips pressed together. "Good land, yes, but a man can't run land on his own forever." He swallowed, his throat tight. Clara used to say the land only thrives when the home does too. The name slipped out before he could stop it. Saying it out loud still felt like pressing on an open wound. But Evelyn didn't shy away. She only nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "She must have been a strong woman," Evelyn said. "She was," Samuel whispered. "Stronger than me. Strong enough to keep this place warm. Strong enough to bring Rose into the world." His voice cracked, and he looked down at his hands. "I don't know if I can do this without her." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Maybe you don't have to." Samuel turned to her, startled by the weight in her words. Evelyn's gaze was steady, but her eyes glistened. "I told you I lost a child once," she said. Her hands clutched the edges of her shawl. "It was years ago. He was only a few months old when the fever took him. After that, I had nothing to hold on to. No husband, no family, no place to go. I've been wandering ever since, trying to find something, somewhere." Her voice trembled then, but she lifted her chin. "Last night, holding Rose, it was the first time in years I felt whole again." The silence between them was thick with unspoken truths. Samuel's chest ached, but not with grief this time, with something new, something rising. He saw in her not just the woman who had saved his daughter's life, but someone who understood the hollow ache of loss, who knew what it was to have love ripped away. He took a slow breath. "Evelyn, I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I can't promise much, but I do know Rose needs you. And, if I'm honest, I think I do too." Her eyes widened slightly, her lips parting as if to answer, but Samuel pressed on, his voice raw. "Stay, not just for tonight. Stay for as long as you need. Stay for as long as we need." The air between them held its breath. And then, softly, Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a bright smile, not the kind that came easy. It was small, trembling, but real. "All right," she whispered. From that day forward, the Hayes Ranch was no longer a place of silence and sorrow. It was a place of rebuilding. Samuel still rose before dawn to mend fences, drive cattle, and fight the stubborn earth, but now, when he returned to the house, he was not alone. Evelyn was there, singing softly to Rose, her laughter like sunlight breaking through clouds. The grief of losing Clara never vanished. Samuel carried it always, like a scar on his soul. But alongside that scar grew something new, hope. Not the wild, careless hope of youth, but the steady, weathered kind that grows between two people who have seen storms and chosen to stand anyway. Rose grew, fed and loved, her tiny laughter filling the rooms that had once known only tears. And Samuel, watching her in Evelyn's arms, knew that though life had broken him, it had also given him the chance to be rebuilt. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the fields in shades of fire and gold, Samuel stood on the porch again, Evelyn at his side and Rose asleep inside. He looked out over the land, the fences strong, the cattle grazing, the sky wide and endless. For the first time in a long time, he felt the truth deep in his chest. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living. And in the quiet of that Montana sunset, Samuel whispered a thank you, not just to Evelyn, but to Clara too. Because somehow, through love, loss, and fate, life had led him here. To hope, to healing, to family. The sun slipped beneath the horizon, but in Samuel's heart, the light had only just begun to rise.